First, welcome to our in-depth guide on federal enforcement operations, your constitutional protections, and the debate around targeted actions. Today we will explain what recent reports mean for communities, especially when operations focus on specific immigrant groups, and how to respond safely and lawfully during an encounter. We will also discuss the controversy, why some see these actions as necessary for public safety, while others see them as discriminatory and destabilizing. Finally, we will share step-by-step strategies, practical scripts, and key resources to help you stay informed and prepared. Next, here is our roadmap. We will start with the context and the controversy surrounding targeted enforcement. Then we will weigh the competing perspectives of security and civil liberties. After that, we will outline your core rights, explain different warrant types, and walk through a door-knock playbook. We will also show diagrams to visualize your decisions, run brief quizzes to reinforce learning, and end with what to do after an encounter, followed by a disclaimer and key takeaways. Meanwhile, recent reports describe planned federal enforcement actions in a Midwestern state, reportedly focusing on the Somali immigrant community. Government agencies often frame such actions as necessary to dismantle international fraud or financial networks. However, the method and scope of these operations raise immediate civil liberties concerns, particularly when agents are alleged to use aggressive tactics or language implying they are local police. This context makes it vital to understand your constitutional protections. Now let's examine what triggered the debate. Legal organizations have reported aggressive tactics, including agents allegedly approaching residences and using language that implies they are local police. This creates confusion about who is at the door and what authority they have. As a result, residents may feel pressured to consent to entry. The public discourse is polarized. One viewpoint emphasizes crime fighting and national security, whereas another highlights discrimination and the chilling impact on communities, including those lawfully present. Next, let's compare the perspectives. On one side, advocates for robust enforcement believe targeted operations deter fraud and protect the public, particularly where organized criminal networks are suspected. On the other side, civil liberties advocates argue that broad or aggressive tactics can be discriminatory, undermine trust, and potentially cross legal lines. The reality is that both public safety and constitutional protections matter. Understanding the legal limits of government power helps individuals navigate these encounters safely. Then, let's anchor on your core rights. You have the right to remain silent, which includes declining to answer questions about your citizenship or immigration status. You should not consent to entry or searches without a judge-signed judicial warrant. If agents claim to have a warrant, request to see it through a window or have it slid under the door. Ask to speak with a lawyer immediately. Do not lie. If you are unsure, assert your right to remain silent. Finally, document the interaction by noting names, badge numbers if visible, time, and location. After that, let's break down warrant types. A judicial warrant is signed by a judge and may authorize entry, depending on its scope, address, and specific targets. Even then, you can state that you do not consent, but you should not obstruct lawful execution. An administrative warrant, such as one signed by an immigration agency official, does not by itself authorize entry into a private home. Without a valid judicial warrant or exigent circumstances, agents generally need consent to enter. If there is no warrant, you should not open the door and should assert your rights, including the right to remain silent and to speak with a lawyer. Next, follow this practical playbook. First, do not open the door fully. Use a peephole or window. Second, ask who is at the door and what agency they represent. Third, if they claim to have a warrant, ask them to slide it under the door or display it through a window. Fourth, check whether it is judge-signed, whether it lists your address, and the scope. Fifth, if there is no judicial warrant or valid authority for entry, assert that you do not consent to entry or any search. Sixth, state that you choose to remain silent and want to speak to a lawyer. Seventh, do not lie or sign anything without counsel. Finally, document the encounter details. Then, visualize the encounter with this flow. It begins with a knock at the door and a request to identify the agency. If a judge-signed warrant with the correct address and scope is presented, you state that you do not consent but do not obstruct, request a lawyer, and understand they may lawfully execute the warrant. If the agents have only an administrative warrant or no warrant, you keep the door closed, assert your right to remain silent, decline consent, and allow the encounter to end. There is also a branch for exigent circumstances, such as emergencies, in which agents may lawfully enter without consent. This flow helps you decide calmly and consistently. Next, here is a quick quiz. The question is, without your consent, can agents enter your private residence on the basis of an administrative immigration warrant alone? Option A, yes, always. Option B, no, never under any circumstances. Option C, only if you invite them in or if there's a true emergency. Option D, only if they say they are police. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the correct answer in the next section. Now, the correct answer is only if you invite them in or if there is a true emergency. Administrative warrants alone do not authorize entry into a private residence without your consent. A judicial warrant or an emergency is generally required for lawful entry. Always verify any warrant and assert your rights calmly. Moving on, if someone at your door identifies as police, verify the agency. Ask whether they are local police, ICE, or DHS. Request a business card or badge number if visible. Ask to see any warrant through a window or to have it slid under the door. If there is no judicial warrant, keep the door closed and assert your rights. Avoid making statements. Instead, request to speak with a lawyer. Next, this sequence diagram shows a typical exchange. The agent knocks and identifies as police. The resident asks whether there is a judicial warrant. The agent may show a document at the window. The resident asks to slide it under the door. If it is a judge-signed warrant with proper scope, the resident states non-consent but does not obstruct. If there is no valid warrant, the resident declines consent and asks them to leave. Following the encounter, the resident calls a lawyer. Throughout, the resident keeps responses short, repeats rights as needed, and documents details. Then, here are practical scripts. You can say, I choose to remain silent. You can also say, I do not consent to entry or any search. Ask them to slide the warrant under the door or show it clearly at the window. Ask whether it is a judicial warrant signed by a judge and what address it lists. Finally, say that you want to speak to a lawyer. Keep your tone calm and respectful. Next, let's check your understanding. The question is, during a door encounter, should you answer questions about your citizenship or immigration status? Option A, yes, if they say they are police. Option B, no, you may assert your right to remain silent. Option C, only if they show any document. Option D, only if they promise it will help you. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section. Now, the correct answer is that you may assert your right to remain silent. You do not need to discuss your citizenship or immigration status during a door encounter. State that you choose to remain silent and that you want to speak to a lawyer. Afterward, once the encounter ends, document everything immediately: time, location, names if known, and what was said. If a document was shown, note the warrant number, signatory, and any visible details. Contact a trusted lawyer or legal aid organization as soon as possible. If appropriate, consider a records request and connect with community support groups. Keep your account consistent and store documentation securely. Finally, please note this important disclaimer. This video provides general information for educational purposes and is not legal advice. Laws and procedures vary by jurisdiction and facts. For guidance about your specific situation, consult a qualified attorney. In closing, keep these points in mind. Always ask which agency is present and request to see any warrant. Verify a judge's signature and the correct address. Do not consent to entry or searches without a judicial warrant. Assert your right to remain silent and ask for a lawyer. Do not lie, and document every detail of the encounter. Understanding the competing perspectives helps you stay informed and prepared. To summarize resources, seek attorney referrals through local bar associations, legal aid, and immigrant rights organizations. Look for Know Your Rights cards and multilingual materials that match your language needs. Consider community hotlines and trusted advocacy groups for support. And consult official court and agency websites for procedural basics. Always verify information with qualified professionals. As a final note, thank you for watching. If this video helped you, please like it, share it with your community, and subscribe for more rights-focused guides. We would love to hear your experiences and questions in the comments, so add your thoughts and help others learn from your insights.